The movie is set in the era of 1830 in the Hudson Valley area of New York. Augustus Landor is a retired detective who lives alone. He is a widower and his daughter left home a few months ago, causing him to turn to alcohol. One day, while sitting by a river, a military officer named Captain Hitchcock approaches Landor. The captain tells him that his superior, Colonel, wants to see him urgently. Landor decides to accompany the captain right away. During their journey, the captain praises Landor's reputation as the best detective known for solving mysteries. They soon arrive at the U.S. Military Academy, where Landor is introduced to the colonel. The colonel explains that they require Landor's assistance to investigate a private matter. He reveals that a second-year cadet named Leroy Fry committed suicide the previous night, and someone mutilated his body by ripping his heart out of the chest from the hospital ward. The colonel asks Landor to discreetly solve the case. In order to gather information, Landor visits the morgue to examine the deceased body. The attending doctor informs him that the heart was expertly removed, suggesting that the perpetrator must be skilled. Later on, Landor goes to the location of the murder and talks to the guard who was on duty the previous night. The guard tells him that he heard strange sounds and discovered Fry's lifeless body hanging from a tree when he went to investigate. Intrigued, Landor returns to examine the body once more. He notices unusual bruises on the neck and hands, indicating signs of a struggle. Wanting more information, Landor asks the doctor to examine the victim's head and determines that Fry was struck from behind. As he continues his investigation, Landor discovers a note in Fry's hand, deciding to analyze it later. Later, while revisiting the crime scene in search of clues, Landor encounters a young cadet named Edgar who expresses his interest in solving the case. Landor then questions the night guard about the violation of the corpse. The guard mentions that an officer relieved him from his duty, causing him to leave early. He found it interesting because the officer was missing the stars on their uniform. That night, Landor goes to a bar and is surprised to find young cadet Edgar drinking there. Edgar suggests that Landor should question Fry's roommate since they had a falling out. However, when Landor interviews Fry's roommates, he doesn't receive any important information that can help him. Out of the blue, they receive news that a sheep and a cow have been mutilated in the same manner as Fry's body. Concerned for the cadet's safety, the captain imposes restrictions on their outdoor activities as a precautionary measure. Realizing he needs assistance, Landor decides to seek help from young cadet Edgar and arranges a secret meeting with him. He offers Edgar an unpaid job to assist him in solving the case. One of Edgar's tasks is to decipher the letter found in Fry's possession. That night, Landor tightly holds a hair ribbon belonging to a woman, and appears deeply distressed as the memories of his daughter floods his mind. Suddenly, his door opens and Edgar enters. With excitement, Edgar informs Landor that he has successfully decoded the letter. It turns out to be written by a woman, and seems like an urgent invitation to meet somewhere. Landor expresses his appreciation for the young cadet, and proceeds to crack the entire letter. Landor and Edgar gather at the location where Fry's heart was taken, the second crime scene. They suspect that some religious rituals might be involved due to the presence of a circle and triangle on the ground. Edgar attempts to investigate the religious beliefs of his fellow cadets, but doesn't find any helpful information. Since Edgar is secretly working for Landor, he plans to fake illness to skip his training. The doctor advises him to rest for the day while informing the seniors about his condition through his son, Artemis. Unfortunately, Edgar receives a scolding for using illness as an excuse to avoid the parade, and is ordered to remain indoors throughout the day. However, Edgar manages to sneak away and arrives at Landor's place in secrecy. He is surprised to find a collection of books in Landor's library. Among them, he comes across a poetry book written by Landor's daughter, Maddie. Curiosity about Maddie arises within Edgar, but Landor refuses to discuss her. Edgar reveals that he has become friends with Artemis and concludes that Artemis has a sister whom Fry deeply admired. That night, Landor has a dream about his daughter and becomes overwhelmed with sadness, crying uncontrollably as he misses her. The following morning, at Fry's funeral, Landor encounters his family. Later, Fry's mother gives Landor a personal diary belonging to Fry. Landor is surprised that he didn't come across it during his investigation, but Fry's mother explains that the colonel sent it to her as a favor. Trusting in Landor's detective skills, she asks him to decode the diary since it is written in codes that she cannot decipher. Landor eagerly spends the next few days decoding the diary, and eventually succeeds in understanding its contents. Meanwhile, Edgar receives an invitation from Artemis to dine at his house. While there, Edgar catches sight of Artemis's sister, Leah, and instantly falls in love with her. Leah entertains the guests with her musical abilities, but soon grows tired and excuses herself to rest. Edgar seizes the opportunity to approach her and express his admiration for her talents. He also invites her to go on a date on Saturday. However, Leah apologizes, mentioning that she is busy on that day. Edgar suggests meeting on Sunday at the cemetery instead, which surprises Leah, but she reluctantly agrees. On Sunday, they meet at the cemetery, and Edgar shares details about his late mother. He also becomes curious about Lee's personality, suspecting that she may be dealing with an illness. However, she does not respond to his inquiry. Suddenly, Leah collapses to the ground, experiencing a seizure, and Edgar becomes deeply concerned for her well-being. After Leah recovers from her seizure, Edgar supports her and accompanies her back home. During their walk, he confesses his love for her and impresses her with his unique qualities, unlike anyone she has met before. On his way back home, Edgar notices a mysterious figure in the dark. Upon closer inspection, he realizes it's his classmate Ballinger, who warns Edgar to stay away from Leah since he has feelings for her too. The situation escalates, leading to a fight between them. Suddenly, Landor appears and comes to Edgar's rescue. Later that night, Landor visits a bar and meets his mistress, Patsy. He shares his belief that Dr. Marquis and his family are the primary suspects, as they seem to be hiding something. Landor is awakened by a knock on the door, and Captain Hitchcock informs him that Ballinger has gone missing. The cadets and their seniors, with the entire academy, begin a search in the nearby area for Ballinger. Eventually, they discover Ballinger's lifeless body hanging from a hill, covered in blood. During the autopsy performed by Dr. Marquis, it is determined that the organ removal was not as precise as before, indicating the work of a different killer. The heart had been taken, and Ballinger's genitals were also mutilated. Learning of this information, Captain Hitchcock becomes angry with Landor and questions his progression in the investigation. He scolds Landor for the delay in solving the case, as it has already been a month without any suspect identified. Landor assures the captain that he will soon arrest the culprit. Additionally, Captain Hitchcock raises suspicions about Edgar due to his argument with Ballinger and his history of strained relationships with both Ballinger and Fry. Feeling betrayed, Landor confronts Edgar about lying regarding his connection to Fry and Ballinger. Landor accuses Edgar of being involved in the murders, but Edgar denies the allegations. Landor then questions Edgar about the mutilation of the bodies, but Edgar again denies any involvement. Edgar explains that these cadets were his tormentors, as he has been bullied by nearly every fellow cadet due to his different appearance and personality. He assures Landor of his innocence and promises to be truthful. They both prepare themselves as they have been invited to dinner by Dr. Marquis. During the dinner, Dr. Marquis expresses gratitude for Landor and Edgar's presence as they gather to mourn Fry's memory. They inform Landor that he has been like family to them, and Fry's death has deeply affected them. However, the atmosphere becomes tense at the dinner table when Artemis mocks Landor, causing Artemis's mother to dramatically leave the table. To address the situation, Dr. Marquis invites Landor to his study, where Landor inquires about his daughter's illness. Dr. Marquis acknowledges Landor's keen observation skills and explains that his daughter, Leah, has been ill since childhood. Her seizures leave her unwell, and despite the best medical treatments, her health has not improved. Artemis invites Landor and Edgar to the lounge where Leah entertains the guests by playing the piano. However, Landor excuses himself to step outside for some fresh air. While Dr. Marquis is out of the room, Landor seizes the opportunity to search the house for evidence and clues. In one of the drawers, he discovers a rare book on black magic. His search leads him to an old military uniform, confirming his suspicions. Suddenly, Mrs. Marquis startles him as she appears behind him and guides him back to the lounge. She informs her husband about Landor's search and claims that the uniform belonged to their deceased brother. Before Landor can further question them, the doorbell rings, and a visibly stressed Hitchcock joins them. He informs them that another cadet has gone missing, and search parties have been dispatched to find him. Upon searching the room of the missing cadet, Stoddard, Landor realizes that all his personal belongings are gone, suggesting that he fled in fear for his life. The records indicate that Stoddard was a close friend of Fry and Ballinger, making him fearful enough to run away. Hitchcock pressures Landor to arrest Artemis based on the evidence of the coat. However, Landor asks for some more time, as he believes he has one final clue to solve the case. He consults a history professor who specializes in witch hunters and requests a picture of a witch hunter turned devil worshipper. To his surprise, he finds the exact picture hanging in Dr. Marquis's house. Meanwhile, Leah asks Edgar to prove his love by sacrificing his life, and he agrees. Realizing the danger, Landor rushes to Dr. Marquis and confronts him. Landor accuses the doctor of using dark magic to heal his daughter. Initially dismissing Landor as insane, Dr. Marquis eventually confesses to his sins when confronted with the picture of the witch hunter found in their house. He reveals that no medicine helped his daughter, but satanic practices brought about a miraculous improvement in her condition. Landor immediately questions him about Edgar, and Dr. Marquis admits that Edgar left some time ago. Landor discovers Edgar's coat and demands to know his whereabouts. Reluctantly, Dr. Marquis provides the information. When Landor reaches the basement, he finds Edgar bound in a circle with blood on his hands, appearing drugged. Leah, Artemis, and their mother surround him, reciting strange verses. Landor attempts to intervene, but they continue with their ritual. Suddenly, a candle stand toppled onto the wooden floor, causing a fire to ignite. Instead of being scared, Leah and Artemis persist with the process. Landor manages to rescue Edgar, but a burning wooden plank falls on Leah, engulfing her in flames. As Artemis tries to help her, he also succumbs to the fire, while their mother screams in misery for her children. Later, Captain Hitchcock expresses gratitude to Landor for his help in solving the case, and they part ways. After some time, Edgar, who has recovered in a medical facility, visits Landor at his cottage. Edgar accuses Landor of being the murderer of the two cadets, presenting evidence in the form of Landor's handwritten notes. He reveals that he knows about Landor's daughter, who was violated by these cadets, and believes that Landor killed them to seek revenge. Landor recalls how he lured Fry with Patsy's assistance, and when Edgar questions how he discovered Fry's guilt, Landor explains that his daughter had Fry's necklace in her possession, and he found out about Ballinger through Fry's diary. Edgar feels heartbroken to have been deceived, but eventually grasps the truth. He burns the evidence notes and leaves the cottage. Finally, Landor finds relief after avenging his daughter and stands on the mountain where she took her own life. He releases her headband into the air as a farewell gesture.